D&D combat is boring and predictable, but don't worry, I'm here to help. Every single dungeon master has been there. I've been there more than I'd care to admit. Attack, damage, move, repeat. The same old slog every time. There are a lot of great house rules and other options to help make your D&D combat better, but the rule I'm about to share with you, stolen straight from my favorite non-D&D TTRPG dungeon crawl classics, has resulted in some of the most chaotically fun fights I've ever experienced. Hey there, adventurers. My name is Judd, and this is Short Rest Studios, where we believe fun builds community. Today we're talking about crits. And you may be thinking, you only ever got a 1 in 20 chance of a critical hit. Even if you include critical failures too, that's only 2 in 20, but here's the thing. Critical hits and failures have the potential to create the most insane, memorable, and enjoyable moments in your games. Adapting DCC's crit and fumble mechanics to your D&D table ups that potential exponentially. Imagine this. Your party climbs down into a dry ravine. There, hidden in the shadows of the cliffs amidst piles of rotting refuse, is a massive, three-legged monstrosity, an Atyug. The creature seems to be ignoring you, but your dwarf barbarian flies into a rage, rushes forward, and takes a swing with his warhammer. He rolls a nat 1. Swish. Complete miss. On to the next player's turn. Or, the barbarian takes a swing with his warhammer. He rolls a nat 1. Now he's got to roll on a fumble table, but not just any fumble table. He rolls a d20 and gets a 4. In his violent enthusiasm to slay the hideous beast, the barbarian doesn't just miss, the head flies off his hammer. The weapon is repairable, but it's useless for now. Next, your cleric steps up with her mace. She swings and strikes deep into the monster's spongy yellow flesh. It's a natural 20. She rolls a d20 on a crit table designed for her class and gets a 19. She delivers a powerful blow to the creature's chest, doing an additional 2d8 damage. I'm not here to tell you to give up on D&D and switch to DCC. I'm going to show you how you can easily bring the chaos and fun of DCC's crit and fumble system into your D&D game. You can also bring some crazy fun into your wardrobe with these amazingly comfortable, high-quality graphic tees from today's sponsor, Into the AM. Run your game in style with their hoodies, jeans, and more. Even dressing up is fun with their all-day pants, which are the most comfortable pants I've ever worn in my life. No lie. Head to intotheam.com/shortreststudios to get 10% off your order. Plus, you'll help out the channel. First off, you don't have to buy anything. You can, of course, buy the DCC RPG Core Rulebook. Who knows what other treasures you might find there. Or, and this is one of my favorite TTRPG resources and well worth the $10, you can buy this little DCC Reference Booklet. It includes all the tables from the Core Rulebook. But the DCC Quick Start rules are always available for free on the Goodman Games website. I'm going to put a link to all those options in the description. In the Quick Start, you get the wonderful Fumble table, which is really straightforward to use. We can drop it straight into a D&D game and we're ready to go. It also includes 3 crit tables that cover all the core DCC classes at low levels, which we're going to adjust to fit D&D characters. And don't worry, it's only going to take us a few minutes to get these tables ready for your game. The first thing to consider is how these tables work in DCC. Let's start with fumbles. When you roll a nat 1, that's a fumble, and in DCC, you then roll on a separate fumble table to get the additional result. Here's what the rules say. The die rolled on the fumble table depends on the character's armor. 1d16 if wearing heavy armor, 1d12 if wearing moderate armor, 1d8 if wearing light armor, 1d4 if wearing no armor. Wait, 1d16? Yeah, that's what I said. DCC uses the same traditional polyhedral dice that D&D does, but it also has 7 additional dice. But don't worry about that, we'll adapt this to use your standard dice. Anytime a PC rolls on a crit or fumble table in DCC, their luck modifier applies to the roll. Lower is better on the fumble table, so they actually subtract that luck modifier. Since 5e does not give characters a luck stat, we're going to use weapon-appropriate modifiers for these rolls. Dex for finesse weapons or strength for strength-based weapons. Now let's talk about the critical hits. Just like 5e, a nat 20 results in a critical hit. Some classes get a crit on other roll results too. For example, warriors crit on a 19 or a 20, and this is where converting these to 5e might feel a little tricky. There are 3 crit tables in the DCC Quick Start. Each is assigned to particular classes and levels up to level 3. The full rules include 5 crit tables to cover more levels. And each of these crit tables has 28 possible results. Since higher level characters and marshals will usually get crits more often than other characters in DCC, their crit tables allow for more deadly results, hence the multiple tables, but also your class and level determine which die you roll on which crit table. For example, a level 2 cleric rolls a d8 on crit table 3, while a level 1 thief rolls a d10 on crit table 2. Again, their luck modifier applies to the roll. This time it's added because the higher the result, the better. Now that we have an idea how crits and fumbles work in DCC, we can figure out how to convert them to D&D 5e. I'll give you a link to access a free PDF in the description with the final results of this conversion. Let's start with fumbles again. Let's use the same basic system as DCC to determine which die to roll on the fumble table. This is pretty easy. 1d4 for no armor, 1d8 for light armor, 1d12 for medium armor. The DCC rulebook has some suggestions for converting standard dice to its funky system, but it's extra math and not very elegant, so for heavy armor, use the d20 and re-roll anything above a 16 on the die. If you want to use the funky dice, I'll drop links in the description where you can buy a full set of DCC dice or only the additional funky ones. Another option would be an online dice roller like the Crawler's Companion at purplesorcerer.com. I'm going to link to that too. Again, since there's no luck in 5e, I think the most logical modifier to use when rolling on the fumble table is the ability that applies to the weapon. If it was a finesse weapon, use their dex modifier. If it's strength-based, use strength. If it was a cleric casting a spell, you'd use wisdom, but these rules only apply to weapon attacks. Magic has its own stuff in DCC. So in the case of our dwarf barbarian from earlier, he was wearing light armor, so he rolled a d8 on the fumble table. He uses strength to wield his warhammer, so we'd subtract his strength modifier of 2 from his roll, which was a 6 on the die. Thus, he rolled a 4, giving the hilarious result that ensued. Keep in mind also that you may need to adjust some fumble outcomes. For example, a couple of them require a reflex or agility save, which don't exist in 5e. Just make those into dex saves. Another example, some of them result in damage to or loss of the weapon used. For classes like monks, which are typically using unarmed strike, you may need to adjust the fumble outcome to deal with that discrepancy, since a low result on the fumble table shouldn't cause injury.
'Tis but a scratch.
Now let's look at the crits. They are a bit more complicated, but still pretty easy to handle. The first thing we need to do is convert the classes and levels for each table. Something to be aware of here is that elves, dwarves, and halflings are their own classes in DCC. There are no species. Here's how I'd convert the crit dice and tables in the DCC Quick Start rules to 5e. All these are for levels 1 and 2. Crit table 1 is for wizards in DCC. We'll make it wizards and sorcerers for 5e. Table 2 is for all thieves and elves. Thieves are basically equivalent to 5e rogues. The D&D classes that have the most in common with DCC elves are probably warlocks and druids. I'd throw a few more classes into this one as well, so crit table 2 for 5e would cover rogues, bards, druids, rangers, and warlocks. Crit table 3 is used by clerics, halflings, level 1 and 2 warriors, and level 1 to 3 dwarves. The remaining core D&D classes should fit well here. Level 1 and 2 barbarians, fighters, and paladins, plus all clerics and monks. Since we're using standard dice without converting them to DCC's funky dice, we won't really have to adjust the crit dice until our PCs get to higher levels. In this case, I'd just extend how many levels each class uses a particular crit die. For example, a fighter would use a D4 at levels 1 and 2 on table 3. The DCC warrior uses a D5 on table 4 starting at level 3, but I'd keep the fighter at D4 until level 4, at which point they'd be using a D6 on table 5. But since we're only looking at levels 1 and 2 and tables 1 to 3, here are the final results of our 5e conversion. Remember to add the appropriate modifier depending on the kind of weapon the character is using at the time. Barbarians roll a D12 on crit table 3. Bards, rangers, and rogues roll 1d10 on table 2. Clerics and monks use a d8 on table 3. Druids and warlocks roll a d6 on table 2. Fighters and paladins use 1d10 on table 3. Sorcerers and wizards roll 1d6 on table 1. As your party levels up, you can expand your tables and move up to higher facing dice. Thanks so much for watching, adventurers. If you've got questions or favorite tools of your own to share, drop them in the comments. If you got something out of this video and want more of this kind of content, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And please consider supporting this channel by joining the Adventurers Guild at patreon.com/shortreststudios or by hitting the join button under the video. If you're looking for even more great ways to bring the fun back to your D&D combat, check out this video, and I'll see you next time on Short Rest Studios.